Hello and welcome to the mini lothern channel. This is Lemmy. Today I'm gonna show you how I paint my dwarfs. I like the blue color scheme a lot, and that's what I have gone for with these dwarfs. Just note, these dwarfs were new dwarfs that I painted. The one I'm gonna paint for this video is gonna be an old dwarf. One that I, as you see, have obviously painted back in the day when I was 14. And I'm gonna get all those models away from me now and choose one to show you how I got rid of the ugly base. I just scraped with a scalpel all the little rocks I put on there when I was 14. I scraped them away, and just be careful not to cut yourself. I used a blunt scalpel, so I would not really cut myself, and the scalpel became even more blunt as I got through all these warriors. First of all, I based them by putting some glue back on the base. I tried to get it as evenly as possible also on the base, so you don't have little lumps when we put the sand on it. And be careful to not touch the feet. When I glue the model in place, I try to raise it a little bit, so I can put a little bit of glue underneath his feet so it looks like he's standing on the sand. Now just put it in a box full of sand, shake it a little to get the excess off, make sure the rim is nice and smooth, no sand there. And for the purposes of this video I gave the black base coat. Then I start dry brushing it with rhinox hide. It's a very heavy dry brush, just to get the base layer done. For the next dry brushing stages for the base, I use mournfang brown and baneblade brown. Each time I use them I have less and less paint on my brush, so the effect gets less and less visible, just to get a little bit of a gradient in the base. After I'm done painting, I usually put a tuft or so on there too. You can use snow effects as well, depends what you want. Because they're dwarfs, I really like just one tuft to show that they live in an arid climate on top of mountains. So next is mournfang brown. It covers a little bit less of the base, so the rhinox hide is still visible. Then baneblade brown. As you can see, I get rid of a lot of the paint, just so it goes less into the recesses, to have more depth in the base. Now we start painting the model. First of all I start with leadbelcher, and I paint the male skirt he has, the heads of the axes I paint as well, and the recesses of his helmet. I just try to give it an even coat of leadbelcher. Use a normal sized brush, just actually a pretty small sized brush. Not the smallest I have yet. Just make sure you don't miss anything. And as you see, I don't thin out my paints, I use them straight from the pot. Next up is zamesi desert for the boots. I really like this color to make the model pop, to give the little bit of extra color. And it contrasts nicely with the blue in my opinion. So give it a couple of thin coats of zamesi desert before we start painting the top part of the cloth in gar blue. Once again, just thin coats, and just make sure you use the right paint. I still use my normal too small sized brush to make sure I don't touch anything else, like the leadbelcher we already painted. If you do paint over it by accident, just go over it once you're done with gar blue. It's not a big deal at this point. Now for the pants and the bottom shirt, I use rhinox hide. Now it's more important to be careful because the zamesi desert is a very thin paint, so it's gonna take a layer or two to get it back up to where we want it. Now we're done with that, I start painting the face and hands. I use ratskin flash. Most people would use other colors for it, but I just like ratskin flesh for the flesh colored bits. Now I use baneblade brown for the handle of the axis. Once again, it's a thin paint, so use a couple of layers, don't layer it on too thickly because you'll get weird bumps. Because this is an older model, I already have a lot of bumps, because when I was younger I didn't really care that much or understand it that much, I guess. So the model already has some bumps I have to work around. So do yourself a favor, just paint evenly and paint 1, 2, 3 layers if needed. Following up, baneblade brown is mournfang brown, and I use it to paint the belt, the pouch he has on his side, as well as in front. He has a little pouch near the axe, that's why there's a little bulge on this model, so be careful you paint that too. And I use mournfang brown for the beard and hair as well. You can use any other hair color you want. I picked mournfang brown because the pot was already there. It was the first one I had in my hands. Just be careful to not paint over the parts we've already painted. As you can see, I also tried to paint some lips on him. For the rest of the metal, I use hashnut copper. If you have a model with a shield, I also use it for the rim of his shield. You can see in the pictures I'm gonna include in this video. I use hashnut copper for it. It is a paint you have to be careful with, because it tends to be quite transparent, so you have to put once again a couple of layers, in my experience. And I also forgot to paint the hair and beard before I used hashnut copper, so yeah, that's why it's not painted right here. Now the model already looks great. Now we're gonna make it look even greater by first applying some washes. These will make the model really pop and give it more depth. The first wash I'm gonna use is tyran blue. Once again, I try to use it sparingly. I like to give the nice thin coat, and where there are obvious creases in his cloak, because on the cloak we are using tyran blue, I like to give it a little bit more of the shade paint to make it stand out a little bit more. Once again, if you have a model with a shield, I like to paint it around the edge of the shield. You're gonna see in the pictures I'm gonna throw up in the end what I mean about it. So not the entire shield, just where the shield meets the metal rim. It gives it a little bit more depth because the shield is a little bit flat in my opinion. Now everyone's favorite nuln oil, just use that where you used leadbelcher. Give it a nice thick coat. It may stain a little bit, give it a little bit of black patches, but that's understandable. The dwarf is mid-battle, there's gonna be some dirt and other stuff on his axes and his armor. It also gives the mail more depth. Second to last wash is agrax earthshade, and we use that everywhere we use mournfang brown. I don't really use it on the axe handles with baneblade brown, just for the reason that they don't really have any depth, so they don't really profit of the shade paint properties. I gave it a nice thick coating as well. Only with the tyran blue I use really thin coats. And where we used rhinox hide, we can use agrax earthshade again, just to give that a little bit more depth. And the last shade paint we're gonna use is reiland flashshade. I use it on the boots and on the hands and face. I use it on the boots because it gives the boots a little bit of a warmer feeling, and I really like how it goes together with the zamesi desert. Use a nice coat of it as well on the hands and face. There is not a lot of detail in the face on this model, because there are already like 3 coats of paint on top of it, so I don't really care about the face of this particular model. Next up, we are gonna start the highlights. First highlight color I use is lothern blue, and we pick out the raised parts of the blue cloak we have given him. Then I start giving the beard a nice highlight with mournfang brown. You could use another brown, but I really like highlighting with the same color it was originally in after I gave it a wash, because it looks more natural and less jarring to the eye in my opinion. And to highlight the beard I also only highlight a couple of strands, as to not just muddle the beard with almost an entire new coat of mournfang brown. And the last highlight I use ratskin flash again, but with models with more pronounced features, do not already have like 5 cones of paint on them. I use bestigor flash. With this model I didn't use it, especially because of the face. It's just round, it has 0 depth to it, so I tried to make it a little bit more realistic and give it a little bit more depth with the ratskin flash. I didn't feel comfortable using bestigor flash because it would draw too much attention to the face again. And this is what we have so far. A beautiful looking dwarf in my opinion. And he looks awesome and almost ready for the battlefield, because I think he still needs 1 tuft of grass. It was a darker grass because I already had it laying around. Doesn't he look awesome? And if you paint 24 of these bad boys just like this, your army is gonna look amazing. And now that he looks amazing, we can take a closer look at him. I think he looks pretty badass. Now he is ready to stand with his brothers, ready for war. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot of it. And I would like to see your armies. If you paint your dwarf army like this, let me know on Instagram. My Instagram handle is minilothern. It will be in a pinned comment down below. If you like these videos I make, I will try to upload at least once a month. I'm aiming for once a week. So if you have something you want to see on my channel, just make a comment saying what you want to see, and remember to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.